Hello, I'm Odin, and this time I'm gonna make an old prop from the new Spider-Man movie. I'm gonna make the Green Goblin's pumpkin bomb. And welcome to a work in progress. I usually don't want to do this. Usually I like starting at the very beginning, but honestly, I was doing a lot of computer work. What I was doing was trying to figure out what the pattern was gonna be for the pumpkin bomb before I actually touched one of the ornaments. I did okay. I kind of figured out what the pattern needed to be. I was using Evil Ted's dome calculator and what's called a gore calculator to try and figure out what the pieces were gonna be, but everything ended up spiraling in kind of the wrong way. And they're about the right length, but they're not headed the right direction. And I thought about it, and the reason why this is happening is when I did it all flat. I drew it all with just top down, flat on the computer. So when you take a flat object, especially it's ones that are gonna be parallel, and put them on a curve, they cross. And that's exactly what's happening here. Which means that even though I was trying to be slick and see if I can't just make my pattern using the computer to start with, I've got a really good size reference, but I'm gonna have to wrap this with aluminum foil because I have no idea how to figure out what the pattern's gonna be for the parts to spread out in order for everything to remain parallel here. And if you don't know what I mean, give me a couple of minutes and you'll see. So let me get another 80mm ball and we'll make a pattern. This 80mm ball is a 2-part plastic Christmas ornament. I clipped the loop off the top of the ornament and now it's a ball. What I should have done to begin with is wrap this ball in aluminum foil and then cover it with duct tape. And I had torn the tape in half to reduce wrinkles. I also roll the ball around on the table in an attempt to flatten the wrinkles that I do have. Now I'm going to set it aside for a moment because I need another piece next. One piece of my original pattern I can still use is the 50mm circle for the front. Even this pattern is modified from my first attempt. This one has 12 segments that I can cut open with my pattern notcher. Since I'm going to make this part with 2mm foam, I trace my pattern and cut it out. You can still see the 12 segments. This flat disc is going to need to fit on a sphere, so I heat the foam up and press it into my pattern ball. It's warm! Now I have an accurate template to draw from the disc onto my duct tape pattern, including all 12 segment lines. Now I just need to copy it correctly to the other side. I measure the duct taped ball. It's about what I thought. It added not quite a millimeter. I draw a new pattern with an 82mm circle. And I spray glue the paper to a piece of cardboard to make it stiff, which makes a guide to mark the equator around the ball. Now I just need to find the equator. The ball is bigger than the rolls of tape. Actually, no! But it fits this one. No, it doesn't fit that one. Oh, it just sits there, so I'm thinking it fits. It doesn't fit any of these. These are all the same size core. Okay. Yeah, well, that's kind of a waste of time. All right. So I tried my set of circle cookie cutters, and I found one that just fits over the ball. There is a point to all this, don't worry. All right. Now, okay. How complicated can you make it? Oh no, Odin, I can make it pretty complicated. I cut a strip of foam 38mm wide and tape it around the cookie cutter. The ring on top of the cutter is just a little over 2mm thick. Is that what I want? Is that just over 40mm? So what I've got now is a cylinder with a metal rim that is 40mm tall. This is almost exactly 40mm. A little bit of wiggle room is going to be okay, just a little bit though. What this will let me do is take the sphere, drop it in. Now I know where the equator is. It doesn't matter where the sphere lands, that's the equator. Now I have a place to set my equator guide and find the equator of the ball. If I line up 2 of the segment marks with my cardboard guide, I can trace a circle around the ball connecting the segment marks. Be careful about letting the ball roll around because it adjusts things ever so slightly. Plus there's the angle of the pin. Now I repeat this a couple of times. I don't need to do all the segments right now. Because if I want it, it's one like way off on that side. Oh, well, that's okay. Just don't use this piece at all. When it went around the other side, I ruined it. That's okay. I've got one pie piece that I think is going to work. If I wanted something super accurate, I'd just 3D print it, which is always an option. But I wanted to make something by hand because that's what I enjoy doing. At least that's what I tell myself. Anyway. So I know that I'm going to use a piece this size to be the front of the bomb. Well, the same piece works to be the back. So all I'm going to do is turn it over, and those three line up pretty good there. That looks like it's about the center. All right, so let's say it's about here. I double checked some of my lines because all that I am after right now is the correct shape of one of the panels that fits around the sphere. So I cut the front disc off first, and then cut out the best looking pair of panels. Now this is the angle that I needed for the panels to fit correctly on the ball. So it's pretty hard to see because these are some little pieces and it may not be obvious to you, but it's okay. I'll explain it a little bit and then I'll show you in just a second when I get these made properly. The first paper pattern that I made was this piece here, and I based that off of making 6 equal pieces that went all the way around the pumpkin bomb, because that's effectively what it is. There's 6 that go off the front and 6 that go off the back. Instead of having them spread out the way they needed to in order for everything to remain straight and parallel on a sphere, I made it straight and parallel on a flat plane, which is why they're curved on my first attempt here. This is showing what it'll look like when you have parallel on a sphere geometry laid out flat in 2D. They spread apart like this, like a pair of pants or something. So I'm gonna redo this pattern using these shapes. I'm gonna go ahead and do that on the computer, and I'll be right back. Man, the panels are tiny. I get the pair of small panel patterns cut out. With the size of the panels I'm working with, you can see why I don't really want to go any smaller on the size of the pumpkin bombs. All right. I have to get really creative to be able to hold the pattern in place while I'm tracing it onto the 2mm foam. And I need 12 of each part, and each one needs to be cut out separately. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Good, I got one too many, that's fine. I'm literally using scrap pieces because the project's so small. All right. And I cut out all 24, well, I guess 25 pieces. Because it's hard to see the corrected orientation of the panels, I marked the side that's going to need glue on each one. And then all of these flat panels need to fit over a sphere, so I heat form each one over the same ornament that I'm going to be gluing. Even the tiny little guys, they're going to be curved as well. Okay. Now I've got... I'm thinking ahead. And I know that right now all the panel pieces I've cut out are all 2mm thick, and that's it. That's not going to give enough variance for it to be that interesting. I have a plan for the textured panels that go on these guys, and I'll get to that when I get to that. But as of right now, I think I'm going to recut the main front circle from some of the last of the 3mm craft foam that I've got. The local stores around me don't carry 3mm anymore. When I want more, I'm going to have to order it online, but I still have enough that I'm going to be able to make 1 or 2 of these with 3mm, and it's black, which is the right color, so I'm going to go with this. I cut out the new set of 3mm panels and heat formed them, of course. Now I need to glue these onto the sphere, right at the top, and not slightly off to one side. It took me a few minutes to figure out the size of the pieces that I needed to stack, but I found that resting a 1, 2, 3 block on a piece of 2mm foam was the right height to mark where I needed to glue. Because the way the halves fit together, one side is taller than the other, and so I needed to use some 4mm foam on it instead. Now that I have my guides marked, I can hot glue the front panel to the sphere. Well, for a clumsy human visual inspection, that looks like the two sides are pretty opposite of each other. So hopefully good enough. Now, one of the nice things about these little panels is that they're supposed to have spaces in between them. They only match up right at the black edge. Everywhere else, for the most part, they've got spaces between them because you want light to be able to shine through them. Which means I need to put light in this thing, which is why it's clear plastic. But that's the next problem. After I get the foam figured out, then I'll get the lights figured out. And the simple version is, yeah, I'll put a flashlight in it, but I want to try something else. I'm just using hot glue to attach all of these panels because I still don't know if they're going to be the correct size. But they do have the correct look. I now have two very interesting pieces. Will this go together? The panels all curve to the other half of the ball. I need to pick each one back outside of the ball, and then I can fit the halves together. Yeah, some of these go together exactly right, some of them are a little off. So I think the biggest issue I have is still human error with gluing on these parts and parts not necessarily going on straight. But you know what? For a foamed, kit-bashed pumpkin bomb, I mean, the fingers are spreading. I don't want to glue this together solid yet because I want to be able to play with putting a flashlight in it. And there's a few more details that I need to figure out. But I've gone from the spiral ain't gonna work thing to, yeah, that's 90% there. This is cool. So I might increase these pieces slightly. What I'm looking at doing is not changing anything at this connection because everything here works. But from this point on, I can stretch them, yeah, about 2 millimeters, maybe 3 that way, and then maybe even increase them about 1 millimeter the other direction in order to close up the light gaps a little bit. I'm a little hesitant on that. I might not, but I knew I was going to have to cut out another one. I knew this more than any other prop that I've done was going to be a process. I got that, which is done. I've got this, which okay, works. And now maybe, just like a lot of people say, the third time is going to be the charm. So it's back to the computer. I'm going to make some modifications to the pattern, and we're going to make another one. I have a new altered pattern to cut out. This one has all the extra details as well. The star pattern around the opening and where the blinking lights should go around the front. All right, I've got all the same pieces cut out again. These are the new sizes, so these aren't the same pieces, but it's the pattern that worked before, but I've adjusted these parts to be just a little bit bigger. There's one more new piece that I want to add on that I didn't have last time, and that's the little star that goes on the front of the viewport. There's a round glowing light at the very front of the bomb. I don't know why it doesn't have a camera that I know of, but anyway, it's got a star that goes around it. I'm going to cut that out of 1 millimeter foam. This will be fun. This is delicate stuff. I was using this with the Minecraft build recently, but I want to make just 2 small little panels that go on top of the black to get a little bit of relief without making it super bulky. I find that a sharp, clean knife is good for cutting 1 millimeter foam because this stuff is pretty easy to tear. Also, I stick the pieces to blue painter's tape to hold them while gluing. Then, very carefully, I stick the 1 millimeter piece onto the 3 millimeter piece and heat form them. Actually, I need to heat form all the pieces. I've got all the parts cut out, all the parts are shaped. It's time to glue them onto the ornament again. But I am going to change one thing up. I'm not going to glue them onto a clear ornament. I've got one that I've sprayed with a translucent green. Now this is technically a seafoam green or Frankenstein green. This isn't really that perfect of a bright green that we see in the trailer, but when I put a light behind this, it's going to be just fine. And since it's green to begin with, it's going to be much nicer than if it was white or if it was just frosted. Anyway, that's my hope. I marked the polar caps again, and this time I'm going to super glue all the pieces to the plastic ornament. And I'm only gluing them to the half sphere that they belong to. I still need to get the lights inside. And I'm very surprised at how well these 12 pieces fit around a sphere. I mean, they actually fit. Any little error would have been multiplied 12 times, and there could have been a big problem. But all these little parts, they just fit. Cool. There's a lot of little intricate parts for something that big. This is really pretty cool. So there are more panels I need to put on. There's one more detailed panel I want to put on, and then I need to put lights in it. I could put the lights in it first, but there's a texture that goes on all the long fingers, and I need to cut that out of some textured aluminum tape that I recently purchased. So let's break that out and take a look at it. This textured aluminum tape is made by 3M and is used in electronics, I think. I'm just going to cut up some partial panels as details, and these are going to be stuck on the front half of all the bigger panels. And I use my leather punch to make a hole over the dot on my pattern. Now, the adhesive in the tape will stick to dried contact cement, which is important because tape doesn't stick so well to EVA foam typically. So from the very beginning, I knew I wanted to put electronics into it. The fact that it was going to light up is what sold me on making this particular prop. Besides, if it doesn't light up, well, it would be fine static sitting on a shelf. You'd still know what it is, but if it lights up, then it's a pumpkin bomb. So what I've got is some of the Adafruit products. I've got a couple of little boards with a rechargeable battery and some addressable LEDs. This is way outside of my comfort zone for doing stuff with electronics. This is well beyond rewiring a flashlight, which is definitely where I think my skill level is at. So I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I got it to work. It took a lot longer than I thought I was going to. And I don't think I'm good at saying, oh, this is the way you do it, because whoa, did I fuddle my way through doing it. So what I do have here, if we look closely, this is the ItsyBitsy board from Adafruit. This is the microprocessor that's actually addressing the LEDs. To that, I've got my power switch I put in to the recharging circuit that powers the 3.7 volt LiPo battery. So it's going to be rechargeable, and with the power switch, you turn it on and it runs my little code that turns on the green that needs to be, and the white blinky lights will go around the port. So it's going to do what it needs to do, but I need to wire it all. Basically, I'm going to have to cut most of these LEDs out and then rewire them to be where I want them to be, because it's not going to work as just a strip. So it's going to take a little bit of time, which is not a big deal, but I'm looking forward to this actually working. This is going to be pretty cool. I will put the battery and processor in the center of the ball, attached to a disc of plastizote foam. I cut the strip of LEDs so I can put 4 green on either side of the battery. But I had to cut out each of the white LEDs to arrange them in a circle to fit the blinking lights that are on the front of the prop. The paper pattern helped a lot with the LED placement. Then I can attach the parts back together. I suppose I should say that the LEDs can be any color. I just programmed these to be green and white. Yes, good. All right, I've got my circuit working. I've got the animation happening the way I wanted it to all along. Very happy about this. I can adjust the timing by adjusting the Python program that's on the microprocessor. I'm not going to do that right now. Right now, it's fine. Now I just need to put it inside of the pumpkin bomb and get it painted. This would be cool. All right. I drill holes around the front viewport so we can see the blinking lights, and I also cut a hole for the power switch. And I made a port for the charging cable. Now I don't have to make a port for the data cable because this ItsyBitsy board has Bluetooth connectivity. I cut a ring of double stick foam to hold the LEDs inside the plastic ball. And a square leather punch works really well for making cutouts for the LEDs. When I'm ready, I can just stick these on the inside of the ornament. I get the white LEDs lined up and super glue the plastizote to just one half of the ball. And everything is still working. Oh, really? Really? You went together exactly the way I wanted you to? Now it's going to rotate it a little bit. I just hot glue the panel ends that cross over the split in the ball. Hot glue will be much easier to remove than super glue if I need to get back inside of this prop again. All right, these are working well, but they need a light pipe. I'm not quite sure what else to call it. Basically, a small, clear plastic rod that I can push through the hole up against the LED and then super glue it in place. And that'll help transfer the light to the front of all of these holes, and it'll look more like a little light bulb. I'm just cutting some short pieces off of a 3mm clear plastic rod, and then a drop of super glue will keep them in place. Used to work. Because of all the clear plastic, I'm not spraying anything on this prop, but I do paint the silver tape red. That way everything will have the same base color when I apply the next coat. And I really wanted to paint this a metallic orange color, but I don't have one. Copper is pretty close to metallic orange anyway. It does take 2 coats of paint, and I did thin the paint slightly with a little water, which helps avoid brush marks. I thought the full front ring was all black, but I had checked the trailer again, and only the little star panel was black. As a final step, what I want to do is thin some black paint and do a very light wash over some of the parts. I don't want the bomb to look dirty, I just want a little more definition in all the copper. The materials I used in this project were picked up locally, and some were ordered online. I put a list in the description. This project had a lot of steps, had a lot of iterations in order to get to my final project here. This was fun. This took a lot more time being in the chair in front of the computer. I was the guy in the chair. Anyway, I spent a lot more time working on the pattern and reworking the pattern than I had ever expected to. And then the amount of time that I spent trying to learn how to make the Adafruit electronics and working with Circuit Python, this was fun, but it did take a bit longer than I expected. So I suppose it is a possible fair argument that maybe this prop is better to be 3D printed. I'm really happy with myself and with what I've done for doing one from scratch and actually scratch building one. Even though I used foam, because I like foam, so the scratch building one was really cool. So I've actually got my own scratch built pumpkin bomb from, well, Spider-Man and Spider-Man No Way Home. I wonder if Osborn would be proud. If you want to make one yourself, I'm going to go ahead and take the pattern that I've made, my final pattern. There's a link for that in the description. That's free. Feel free to download it if you want to try and make one for yourself or just check it out. Also, I will include a list of the components that I use to make this thing light up and a copy of the little tiny code that I wrote in order to make it work. Feel free to play with all that. Make yourself your own pumpkin bomb or something similar that blinks and lights up. And I know that there's going to be lots of different ways that you can make a pumpkin bomb. But this is how Odin makes. First up, Odin's defeated by packaging. This is too hard. One other quick side note, something I didn't even think about until I was starting to set this down on the table and get close-up pictures of it with a camera. I never considered its center of gravity. All the LEDs in the front is just enough that it always wants to roll onto its face. It doesn't matter how you set it down. It's like, yeah, no, I'm just gonna end up on my face. So definitely something to consider, that you want to make sure that you build in the center of gravity so when it stops rolling, it can be facing the right way instead of hiding the good part. The more you know. I want to thank Miss Mary Mac 06, Retro Addiction, Caroline Lee, and all of my Patreon supporters. Patreon members at the $5 and above level get access to my private Discord, which includes weekly games with me, prop-related chat, and early access to live streams. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.